All right, Scott, how you doing?
Good. How's it going?
Good.
Good
Um,
to see you.
it's great to see you. You know, the folks at home can't see all the bloopers we just had, so we'll see if I put some of those in later on in the post. All right, so welcome everyone to our Eastern Lakes pilot episode. You know, the basically the introduction to who we are as a company and our founder Scott. So, Scott, to get started, why don't you introduce yourself to the people at home who don't know who you are?
Sure. My name's Scott Petroski. I'm with Eastern Analytics. I'm the founder. I started the company back in 1999. My background goes back to before the founding of this company. I worked for a company called Digital Equipment Corporation. Most people, unless you've been in the industry a long time, you're not familiar with Digital Equipment Corporation. Um, Digital Equipment Corporation was basically like a Google or a Meta of its day, believe it or not. It had the fastest chips. They created operating systems. They basically did everything. They were started like in the 1950s, and I was brought on around 96, I want to say, to basically work with their advanced technology group. So, their advanced technology group, the whole purpose of the advanced technology group was to go out and research brand new products and see whether or not they would work for Digital Equipment Corporation, whether or not they wanted to implement them at Digital Equipment Corporation. So, so I went out and worked with the advanced technology group there. I was there for about 2 years. And while I was there, I worked with a brand new product in what was the evolving enterprise data warehousing space. Most people now would call it analytics, but it was the beginning of analytics. The whole industry went through an evolution from enterprise data warehousing to business intelligence, and then now into analytics. So I worked with Digital Equipment Corp. I learned basically enterprise data warehousing, specifically in the SAP space, or for people not familiar with SAP, think of it as the ERP space. And then after I honed my skills there on a brand new product that wasn't released to the public yet, um, Digital Equipment Corporation got bought by Compaq. I think Compaq might still be around making laptops and things like that, but Digital Equipment Corporation was bought by them. So I then went out and started consulting in this brand new technology. That took me my first customer was actually in the Middle East, in Saudi Arabia. So I went over to Saudi Arabia for some months to help them implement SAP BW, and then after that, I Saudi Arabia wasn't for me. So after a while, I came back here to the U.S. and then I founded the company in 1999. So so basically, it was kind of an evolution. I've always been an entrepreneur. I was raised in a family of people that ran their own small businesses. So naturally, after working at DEC or Digital Equipment Corporation, which had maybe 55,000 employees, I decided basically to go out on my own. So I started Eastern Analytics, and from there, we've been going strong since then.
Okay, so that's a bit of a roller coaster, obviously.
Yeah,
Obviously, I knew this beforehand. The people at home didn't because I got the script beforehand and everything, and I read all those notes. But I know we have more questions to get to, but if you don't mind, I'd actually like to ask you some follow ups on those things because I think
sure,
it's very interesting. So,
sure.
um, so you explained basically from your was Deck or Digital Equipment Corp. Was that your first place that you worked?
No, what I did was because my family was involved in small businesses.
Mm-hmm.
So my parents had a real estate appraisal company
Okay.
that was pretty large. They had about 50 employees at their height. So it was pretty successful. And I went to college for management. So I didn't go to college for computers. I went to college for business management. I was going to come back and run the family business.
Mm-hmm.
I've been brought up appraising and doing all the legwork every summer and every break. I was working measuring buildings and all this stuff. So so I ended up coming back and then going to work for the family business.
Okay.
And when I was working for the family business, my father had basically moved into some other ventures. He didn't even want to be involved in the business anymore. So I wanted to make it grow. So what we ended up doing was we got ourselves approved. At that point, the business was about 25 years old, the family business. Uh, so I got us approved as a credit reseller, like a credit bureau,
Mm-hmm.
so that we could offer multiple products to our customers, which were lenders and lawyers and things like that. Um, so I ended up then, because I wanted to expand, I got us approved as a credit reseller. All of the credit bureaus who offered credit reports to the lenders, they all had a client software that you could put on your laptop. Well, laptops weren't really around then. You could put on your desktop, and it would dial up via modem to the credit bureau and download somebody's credit report.
Okay.
So so we basically were in a position where, okay, we got approved as a credit reseller, which was almost impossible. Um, but they trusted us with all this data. But we really weren't going to be able to compete and offer this product to lenders for this particular product unless they could call up our system and download credit reports.
Okay. And that's how was that like you were sort of forced into learning how like the more technical aspect of things work in order to offer this product to your
Yes.
clients.
Yeah, we brought on as a partner a friend of the family who was an IT consultant.
Mm-hmm.
He worked in banking and mainframes. He worked down in New York City. He basically said, "Okay, well, I'll write the system for you." Right? We said, "Okay, sure, you'll be a partner. You write the system for us." But we could never really get a hold of him because he was book solid. He was at work. He was commuting back and forth to Manhattan from northern New Jersey. Um, so because of that, I wanted to make progress in this thing because I was in my early 20s. I was like 26, right? I wanted this thing to get moving. So I ended up then, I said, okay, well, you write the client software and I'll write the thing that it calls.
Okay.
So, so I started learning IT. And I basically went and I bought, because this was all via modems. The internet really didn't exist at this point, right? Or at least people weren't really using it. This was in the 94, 95 area. I went out and got a what they used to call a bulletin board
Okay.
software package. I purchased that. We bought a server for inside our building because there was no cloud hosting or anything back then. Um, and basically, this bulletin board system came with its own scripting language, so you could make it do whatever you wanted. So I set it up so that we had four lines coming into it, telephone lines coming into it. So four modems inside of this machine, inside this server. And then this bulletin board software would basically answer the phone for us. And then it would then log all of the data that came in, store it off inside of a database. The database was something called Paradox, which I don't think it's been around in 20 years now. Store off inside of the database all of the information coming in, and then call off to the credit bureau on another one of the lines, negotiate with them via modem, download the data and pass it through back to the customer on the front end.
When you say negotiate, I'm guessing you don't mean like literally like an some sort of like algorithm
No, no,
negotiate. You
no.
mean like literally like two
Technical.
systems interacting with each other, right?
Yeah, when you hear the modem sounds like the
Yeah.
making all the sounds, that's the system's negotiating.
Got it. Okay, okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it would basically grab the information, log it, and then hand it back to the front end.
Okay.
So we got it. So I developed the server working at nights. I was doing real estate in the day, and I was coding all night. And basically, I learned the scripting languages, the databases, all of that stuff. From there, I then rewrote the front end because he did the front end in something called QBasic, which was this very basic command prompt driven thing.
Mm-hmm.
So Windows was just really starting to move and starting to evolve. People were starting to install it. So, and I think Windows had been going for a while, but there weren't as many applications. So even the credit bureaus didn't have a Windows version to be able to go and enter in the borrower's information into. So I got a hold of a package basically to develop in Windows, and then I rewrote the front end in Windows. So in learning all of this, over the course of a couple of years in building this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I basically we were we were we were in the middle or in the tail end of like a recession in the real estate market, so we
Mm-hmm.
weren't booming, we weren't really busy, uh, and I basically said, I'm spending all my time enjoying writing this code and designing this system. Why am I still doing real estate? So I went and I got a job at a as a actually I was a senior consultant at a company called Ross Systems,
Okay.
and Ross Systems had their own language. It was a proprietary language called Gem-Base. So I was rewriting base package modules in Gem-Base for Ross Systems when I then went to night school to learn ABAP, which was an SAP language and the SAP Academy was down the street. I then went and learned ABAP, and that's how I ended up into digital. Digital hired me because I was all self-taught, and
Mm-hmm.
the product that they were releasing, their enterprise data warehouse product, was just being developed in Germany. So we worked with it before the beta phase. We were even like in the alpha phase. They would have an SAP consultant come and install whatever they had on our servers at Digital, and then we would try to make it work. And it didn't work, right? Because it was being developed.
Right.
They were making it better and better every day in Germany. But we basically were giving them feedback. And I worked with the advanced technology group because the guy that I worked with was basically a nuclear scientist who ended up in data warehousing,
Oh, okay.
and he was in the advanced technology group. Naeem Hashmi, if you Naeem Hashmi, you'll see him on LinkedIn. He's a guru in medical data now, uh, but he ended up basically from Pakistan. I sat in his cube for a year and a half, and we just dissected this thing. And then we sat with SAP and told them what it needed to do to
Okay.
be a viable product for digital. If it didn't do this stuff for digital, digital wasn't going to install it because it didn't do everything it needed to do. So I was involved in all of that. So when it came time to compact buying digital, I was supposed to stay for 2 years after um, after SAP made the product available. I was supposed to stay for 2 years, implement it for digital, and then they said, and then you can go consult. You'll be perfect for go consult. We know you want to be a consultant. Uh, so that was my deal with them. But when Compact bought them, Compact was part of the beta program that we were part of, but they dropped out. And they said, yeah, we don't know when we're ever going to implement that. So
Okay.
Digital said, okay, well, get your resume ready. We don't know whose jobs are on the line. We're getting acquired. And my boss said the same to me, do whatever you want. So me and a friend of mine, another technical person who was under me on the project, were on answering questions online on like a bulletin board system.
Mm-hmm.
And a headhunter from Dubai said, hey, you got a minute? Would like to talk to you. And we were like, I'm like, I'm not going to Dubai. And we were sitting in a cube together. I'm like, I'm not going to Dubai. And my friends go, no, just talk to him. Let's just talk to him. So sure enough, a few calls later, next thing you know, a couple weeks later, we're talking to the European company that's implementing the stuff in Saudi Arabia, and I ended up being the lead consultant there in Saudi Arabia. My friend went with me. It was a package deal.
Mm-hmm.
He went there, and then his wife later joined. But he went with me, and then I set the project up. Um, Basically, got all of the other consultants in line, what they needed to do, and started working on it. And then I was like, okay, I'm getting out of here. I live in Saudi Arabia.
Just didn't like the climate, didn't like the environment, the
The
culture.
whole
It just
thing,
wasn't
the
for
whole
you.
thing. It was like moving to Mars. You
That's
know what I
fair.
mean?
I mean, it's completely different
Yeah.
from here, right? So
Oh
that's
yeah, and they told me that there's compounds there full of Western nurses because I was single. Western nurses that are there, and I'll be able to meet girls there, and it's not as bad as you think. And then you got there, and it was as bad as you could think. Really.
Alright. But still, that's super interesting. I mean, I didn't know this until just now, so I'm actually finding out about all this for the first time too.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. So you already had the management frameworks, the experience because your family had already run
Yeah.
a small business, so you saw while growing up how that worked. Then you went to school to
Yeah.
learn that as well. and just by happenstance, it like to wanting to
I
grow
ended
that
up in
existing
IT.
business, you ended up in IT. Yeah,
Yeah,
and just super
and an expert.
self-taught. Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, and an expert. When we went to Saudi Arabia, there were like 12 people in the world who knew the product
Hmm.
because there were only 6 beta sites, and we were one of them. There were 2 people on each team.
For that product
Um,
that we were talking about that SAP had developed in
yeah,
Germany, right? Okay.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So because of that, that's why the Saudis were willing to pay us a lot of money, to the point we weren't allowed to disclose what we were making there. And funny thing about Saudi Arabia is they paid you in $100 bills.
It's like okay.
So you go into the office each month and they give you a giant stack and keep counting out $100 bills, and you walk out with a stack of $100 bills, into the middle of the Middle East,
Hey, all money will do
looking
that
like
to you.
looking like a target.
That's super cool. Okay. Um, I know we have other questions, honestly, but if it was up to
Sure.
me, I'd just keep asking you about this, to be honest. But I
No,
do want to
yeah,
move
let's go. Let's
along.
cover something people
Yeah,
might care about.
absolutely, exactly
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
Although I think you'd be surprised. I think a lot of people will be very interested in that because I was.
yeah,
But getting back to the more modern day, so that's like the story of how Eastern Analytics founded, how you
yeah,
got your experience to be able to like make it what it is today. So moving into the modern day, if you could explain to people what your company does exactly. I know that it's broad and there's multiple things that you
sure.
do because you work with multiple clients, but just a general idea of what your capabilities are, what the team's capabilities are, and if someone's sitting at home right now, they they already work, maybe they work as a marketing leadership or sales leadership, or maybe they're working even in IT for a company right now. What are some of the pains that you could solve? What are some of the common things that people come to you for that you've worked even recently over the last 2-3 years?
Yeah. So basically, what we do is we build analytic solutions. Now, analytics is really wide open,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, in the old days, you had the enterprise data warehousing, which was the solutions of the time. Basically, you were pulling in data, ingesting data from all different sources. You were modeling that data, and you were then presenting it. Back then it was reports, or they would call it OLAP, which was gave you the ability to slice and dice. What we do now is very similar to that. It's just we're working with all sorts of data, and we're working with cloud platforms to do it. So we still work with all sources of data, right? Whether it's ERP data like an SAP or an Oracle, or maybe NetSuite out in the cloud, Salesforce. We work with all sorts of data, whether it's on premise, via, it might be an ERP or some other system, but also stuff that's out in the cloud. Think of Salesforce as an easy example, or Amazon. We work with a lot of Amazon data. Um, we take that data, we build the ingest to load it in to the system. And of course, first we design it first. So we deal with the architecture first as part of a solution. You build the architecture, then you build the data, do the data engineering to ingest the data, to do the storage, and then transform the data to make it more useful. That might be combining data from 5 different sources or something out in the cloud. Let's say you're buying marketing data, maybe global marketing data. Um, for Estee Lauder, we pulled in, I think, 6 different global marketing data sets, from cloud providers that collected data. And we pull it in, we do the data engineering, we do the transformations, we do enrichment. Um, if that data needs to have additional features and things added to it, we'll use ML to do that. We don't always use ML to do that, but we do the enrichment of the data. And then we also deal with the requirement side on the front end to make sure that when we're going to present that data to users, it's got to meet their requirements and give them some insight into what's going on. So we work with the business, make sure we have the requirements, and then we build dashboards or reports to meet that. All
Okay.
we use all kinds of data. I'm still in the SAP space. We've got every customer, even though I'm building stuff out, we build stuff out in Azure. Every customer, we're still pulling in their SAP data because that's just one piece of the data set now.
Okay. So basically, you talk to your clients to figure out what it is blind spot or what they're trying to achieve with data
Yep.
analysis.
Yep.
So I know you just talked about Estee Lauder. You mentioned that to me before too, and I actually will ask you a follow up question on this in a second. But continue what I'm saying. You basically figure out what their needs are, so, what they're trying to achieve first, because it's everything's custom. So this isn't like a white glove one size fits all solution. First, you figure out what they
Right.
need, then you figure out a way to build out with what they have as far as data processing from whatever sources that is. For Estee Lauder, it was marketing data, market segment data, and you figure out, okay,
Yep.
what do you guys want to do? Are you trying to find trends? Are you trying to figure out what your spend is? Are you trying to optimize for ROI? Are you trying to make sure that the shelves aren't empty, right? Like to just make sure the shelves are
Yeah.
restocked on time, whatever it is that they want, and you build out the solution based on that. Is
Yes.
that right?
Exactly. Yes,
Okay.
exactly. Because they need to be able to, the whole purpose of the project is to meet some kind of a need,
Hmm.
right? So so when you design the ingest and then into the storage and the modeling is usually generic, so to say, so it can be used for multiple purposes. But then it will have it'll be modeled specifically, at what you would call like the mart layer, to meet the demands of specific areas of the business, so that they can analyze it. Enrichment could be something along the lines of, an example for what we did for Estee Lauder was we took all of the products that are sold in the entire marketplace.
Hmm.
So Estee Lauder has like about a 10% market share in the consumer, I guess you'd call it the consumer products, makeup and hair
Cosmetics.
category, cosmetics, and I think there's something above that even that you'd call it. So what we did was we ended up taking all of that market data from different sources around the world that aggregated it and sold it to them. Um, we took all that data, and then they wanted to be able to see it based upon their own internal product hierarchy, which meant that they do planning and things inside the company. Certain people are responsible for the shampoo
Okay.
sets of products. Certain people are responsible for the makeup area, right? So underneath those categories are a whole bunch of other categories, all the way down to the kind of pencil you use to put on eyeliner. Is eyeliner a pencil or is it a brush? And so it breaks it all the way down to there. So the problem that they had was that they wanted to take all of the data for all their competitors' products and put it onto their own product hierarchy, so that they could analyze if they were gaining market share in a certain category or subcategory, or if they were losing market share. They could then analyze why was there a spike in a certain month and for a competitor, and then the next month it went back to normal. They could look at their competitors' advertising and promotions compared to their own. Um, it gave them insight into the marketplace, having that data. They had their own data, but they wanted insight into the marketplace to see how they were doing compared to their competitors. So we pulled that all in, and we used ML in that case to enrich the data so that it was then assigned automatically to ML being machine learning.
So
That
AI
it was
for
on
the layman at home.
AI for the layman AI. We used AI to basically assign the competitors' products to their own categories. And now that sounds like something you're like, okay, well, why didn't they have a business analyst doing that or whatever? That sounds like overkill.
Hmm.
But they had been doing that for a while, and they realized that they couldn't keep up with it. So one of this customer segments, there were 300,000 new products in that segment, and they would have had to, and some of the product descriptions and things were in different languages.
Like programming
So
languages, or like literally like French, English,
different
German.
languages. So
Okay.
so you buy the data from Europe, and you might be getting Dutch, you might
Swedish,
be
German.
Swedish, you might get all these different descriptions of the products. So we were because of that they had a full-time team doing this. So it was, I think, maybe 7 or 10 people that just dealt with this data all the time. Because of that, what we did was we built a system that where it would ingest it, that it would use AI to do those assignments, and then they were then able to review those assignments when the probability score went below a threshold. Where basically think of it as they needed to when when AI determined, I'm not really sure on this one, maybe you should check it. Those are the ones that they then manually went in and checked.
Did you,
But because of that, they were able to uh, gain a lot of insight into those markets.
did Estee Lauder or did you build out that modeling parameter? The like the threshold.
I just well, so the thresholds we worked with them on it. So I was the architect on the solution, and then oversaw the team to do that to build the solution. So I worked with the Estee Lauder the technical group, built designed the
Okay.
solution, got it approved by them. We built the solution, and then after that, we worked with the business the whole time to make sure that what we were building was usable to them.
Okay, so you could both bring in your own team to do things if someone doesn't have, an in-house IT team, or you can work with
Yeah,
their in-house team as well and get them
well,
up and
we
running.
you always end yeah you always end up working with their in-house team
Right.
because basically they set up all of the infrastructure, all of this
Okay.
the servers, computes, the security. We have the ability to do that, but somebody like Estee Lauder, where they're so huge, they've already got a whole group that does that. So we work with their group in that case. For a smaller customer, not everybody needs that kind of a solution, right?
Hmm.
For a smaller customer, we can set the entire thing up. They basically, some of our customers, they just create the subscription in Azure under their corporate ID, and then we go in and design and build the entire solution for them. And then we'll support it after we build it if they want support. Or they can have their internal team. We'll also do knowledge transfer to their internal team if they want to do that. And they can take over the support. It just depends on what competencies they have as to you know, what they can do for it. And
Gotcha.
every system needs support. It's just it shouldn't need that much support, but you still have jobs that need to be monitored and those kinds of things. So we can work in any combination of things. We have groups over at Hasbro at this point, and in Hasbro we've got people that just oversee certain technical environments, and we manage them. It's called a managed service.
Hmm.
We manage the people and oversee it, and they oversee that environment. We've got people that do that as a managed service for data ops, right? And data ops is basically data operations. So making sure that the data is always flowing in. It's not just monitoring things. It's actually doing break fixes and heading off changes because changes will occur in the source systems all the time. They don't have it when you're dealing with Salesforce.
Hmm.
Salesforce is going to change their stuff the way Salesforce wants to change their stuff. It doesn't really matter what your opinion is, right?
Right.
So they give you advance notice, and it's our job to monitor that, to see their release notes, correct the environment, correct the flows, correct everything, make sure it's in place before the analytics platform breaks, and then also when jobs fail and the rest of it to fix that as well. And then we also have people project managers, like high level project managers that are there, but we don't oversee them. They report to a VP in some other department, or we have Power BI people there that we don't manage unless they ask us to manage them, and they report to whoever the director is in that particular area of the business. So we kind of offer all whatever people need, whether it's soup to nuts or it's just an expert that really needs to know what they're doing,
So
and
basic,
worker bees, like data ops.
so basically, if anything from whether they just need that little last cog in the machine to get it to
Yeah,
work, or whether they literally are just like, we know we need this, but we have nothing in the frame where we don't even really know how to get it going. We're too small for that, but
yeah.
we know we need something to get this done. So you can serve both solutions, right? Like both sides of
We
the
could
spectrum.
both sides of it. So
Okay.
smaller customers, 50 or 60 million in annual revenue. Those are the guys that really usually don't have any insight into what they need. Right? They might have some tools in mind that they've seen a dog and pony show on,
Hmm.
or something like that, but they don't know how to go about building something from scratch that's going to work and be reliable and consistent. So
They spend much more
you
time
know,
probably working on their product and making sure that their clients are happy than building out all the business analytics, all the other stuff, right? Like the techie stuff. They're much more focused on like, okay, how do we push more of these now? How do we beat our competitors? How do we improve the product? That's probably more of what their focus is, right?
And that's what their experience is
Mm-hmm.
too, right? So, so a director of marketing, right? A director of marketing is used to all the KPIs and things that they're running their business on, and dealing with the marketing departments, and maybe it's the dealing with the sales manager and all the rest of it, working with them. Um, they just know what would be good for them. If we could analyze it this way, that'd be pretty important, right? Um, the problem that they usually get to is when they're small, they're really small. When I say small, maybe 20 guys or something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when they're small, they have one person collecting this data, and they're putting it in Excel, and they're trying to make decisions off of it.
Mm-hmm.
As they grow, the sources of information grow too. So the count of the different sources grows. They start using different systems because they say, okay, now we really need a better, um, we need a better CRM system. So they say, okay, well, let's move from Sugar CRM. Let's try to move to HubSpot, or let's go into Salesforce, right? So I don't know if you ever work with Sugar. I used to have
I'm
one. That was
laughing because we talked about this when I first came into the team. Is that yeah? I'm traumatized by Sugar CRM. I hate it.
big.
We both share. I think a
Yeah.
vitriol on how much we dislike that CRM.
Well, yeah, and we used it early on,
Yeah.
and it was yeah. So as they evolve and the company grows and evolves, um, they get more complex, right? It gets more complex, and it starts to, they start to need to analyze more stuff. Um, it's very, in the simple in the beginning, and this is what we do, and this is successful. This is what we do, and that's what made you successful in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well now once you start going into new markets and you increase product lines and all those kinds of things, um, you start to look at your business differently as it grows, and that's what that's we the smaller customers, we tend to um, we try to stay above the 60 million in annual revenue, but we've got customers of every size.
I think
You know,
recently you mentioned that you're working with a nonprofit, right? Did some work out
yeah,
for them. They're much smaller.
we just did Power BI stuff for a nonprofit, and they were moving out of Excel. So they were running their nonprofit on Excel, and they basically decided they'd use an online ERP called Odoo,
Odoo, yeah.
uh, which I had never heard of, but they went to Odoo. And basically, they then said, okay, well, now we need to replicate what's in this crazy logic we built into all these Excel workbooks. We need to take all that logic that's been running our business and now make it work out of Odoo. And in this case, it was Power BI that we used for it.
Gotcha.
Um, and they're small. I mean, I don't know exactly what their numbers are, but they're in the my guess is 10 to 20 million or something. We kind of did it more because somebody recommended us, and I got on a call with them, and we could help them, and I kind of felt bad uh, because they had a mess, right? And we could help them, and so we gave them discounted rates and stuff like that
You
for
had that
nonprofit.
little itch of the back of your head of, oh man, I don't want to just leave a mess behind. Like that OCD person that doesn't want to like leave the
I,
dirty house unclean.
after like 3 calls with them, doing discovery and those kinds of things, I'm like, well, I know I can help them. Uh, I've got much bigger problems going on and much larger projects with teams of 5 people here that we're working through UAT or whatever. But I had somebody coming up available offshore. So we have people onshore,
Hmm.
right? And then we have people offshore as well in India. And our offshore people are as good as our onshore people. We vet everybody. We vet everybody to the extent that at customers like Hasbro, um, they don't say send us some resumes. They say I want another Safana. I've got this requirement and I want another Safana.
That's the name of one of the people you probably put on there that
That's
they
the
really
name of one of
liked,
the
right?
people that's already working
Yeah.
there. That's leading the way, and then you say, okay, well, Safana is really expensive, and they go, well, maybe not as expensive as Safana, but somebody like her. And we're
Hmm.
like, okay. But anyways, what got me on that was we don't send them resumes. We basically we know what their needs are. We set up appointments with the decision makers on their calendar. They only interview two people, sometimes three, and if lots of times on the first one, they're like, "Yeah, no, Justin's it. We want Justin." And I'm like, "No, talk to this other person. He's already lined up. You might like him better." And they're like, "No," and I'm that's no, please interview them. And at least you have a choice. You don't just say, "Yes, that's the direct hit."
So
But
sometimes you
because
have
of
to
that,
like,
we have to talk them into interviewing more people
yeah.
because they already even the interviews are set up. But what we do is we do screenings. We do screenings. We do even with offshore. So our offshore people, the technical lead there interviews them and screens them because when offshore they come on as a full-time employee.
Hmm.
So we need to make sure that this is the right person, right? So they do a technical screening. After they do the technical screening, they'll give me two or three people, right? And then I'll then conduct an interview with them. And if they make it through my interview, I then do an online technical screening as well in the technology, like a recorded coding session
Hmm.
to watch them actually do their work. And afterwards, I watch the recording on it. And then if they're a fit in every way, which would be communication skills, technical skills, we give them comprehension tests. English comprehension is like fire is to water as a cat is to, and they'll have like dog or elephant and they literally we put them to logic tests and English comprehension tests like that.
To see if they don't just
uh,
understand the language, but they understand conceptually how English works and like are able to like understand
yes,
context when they're talking to whoever
context,
they're, whatever team they're put on. They need to be able to
yes,
understand not just the words that are coming out of your mouth, but the context behind
yes,
them sometimes, right? Not everyone talks
exactly,
literally, especially in English. We tend to be very metaphorical in a lot of cases, right? Like I want this
yeah,
and this and this because of this, this and that, right?
yeah. So we put them through that kind of a screening. And even with offshore, um, only 2 out of 10 are making it through me before they get to the customer. So we're really picky. And these are really good people offshore,
Hmm.
but they still got to make it through me because I'm going to work with them as well,
Right.
right? I want to be able to say something once. I'm kind of a customer engagement manager, but I'm also on a big important project. I'm involved in it, and then make sure that, and then when I hand it off to offshore, I need to know, or one of our other senior people onshore, they need to know that when they say it to offshore, it's not going to come back uh, 60% right and 40% you could tell they didn't understand what you were asking,
Right. You need
basically.
to make sure that when whatever work gets turned in, that it has to be right, but more importantly, there it can't be more work to go back and fix it than it is to actually
Yeah,
have them save you time by handing something and delegating to them, right? They
right.
need to
And
be
that's a problem that everybody has for offshore, right?
of
So
course.
anybody watching this, if you're working with offshore, that's just a problem that everybody has. It might take them twice as long to do something as it does onshore, and the cost savings is because they're less than half of what it is onshore, then they save money. Uh, but it's something we have excellent people on and offshore, and it's to the point. People that was working with recently doing data ops. It's one of the contracted services we have. Um, we're doing data ops offshore. I can literally say, "Oh, no. What you need to do is do it exactly like we did it at this customer," and name the customer.
Hmm.
And because these guys have already been on 4 to 6 customers for us, which might be over the course of 3 years, because I've already been on these projects, I can go, oh yeah, do it exactly like Kate Farms. We're going to do an L1, an L2, an L3 for our data tiers, and they're like, oh yeah, no problem. And then at least from that, just that simple instruction, come back 80% correct,
Hmm.
and we just be tweaking it. Yeah.
Okay. I actually think that we're gonna put a stop to it for now to take a little break.
Okay.
So yeah, well, if you want to say anything before we head out for a second here, we're gonna
Um,
take a little intermission.
no, I just ramble on sometimes, so
That's fair. I do
sometimes
too, but my
people
job
need a
here is
break.
to listen and ask questions.
Okay,
All
cool.
right. We'll see you guys back in a little bit.